Welcome to today's practical sessions on working with pivot tables. So in this practical, we'll be using the 70 record sales data set to explore some of the more powerful ways we can work with pivot tables. There was a video already on introduction to pivot tables, and there we learned some basic things. So here we'll be learning how to modify an existing pivot table, how to sort and group our results, how to group dates and numeric values, how to professionally format our reports, refresh our analysis when the data changes, and combine different pivot tables features to answer business questions. Here is an already created pivot table, and this is showing sales by region. So let's assume we want to show sales by products. So instead of taking it away, then creating a new pivot table, we can easily take away this and bring in products. So once we bring in products, we see that it becomes sales by products. So we can, instead of creating multiple pivot tables, we can easily just change our values. We can change this to category, and we'll still have sales by category. So let's say this is now on products. For example, we can bring in region to our column. Once we bring in region to our column, what this is telling us is that it is now checking per column, per region. So it is checking the products per region, products per region. So sales of products by sales of products per region. So we are looking at keyboard in Abuja, in Ibadan, in Kano, in Lagos, and the total. Assuming we have this pivot table, and what we want to know is the highest sales, not necessarily the total sale. Now we want to know which product has the highest sale. So we can just right click, and you come here. So once you right click, you come to sort. Then you sort it from smallest to largest, and then we have it. So the largest is laptop, and if you sort from largest to smallest too, it's going to give you laptop as the first one. And you can also see there are more sort options. You can more sort options if it's from top to bottom. That's if you want to do the sort direction. Then if this is an explanation of what it does. Okay, so if you look at this now, we have this pivot table. So let's assume, let's introduce let's come here, let's take this off, and then let's put date there. So if you look at this, you discover that what the pivot table is doing now is telling us per day. So 5th January, the total sales amount was 900,000. 6th January, 8th January. So we can decide to group. So once you click group, you group it. It was grouped in dates. You can group it in months. So it becomes January sales, February sales, March sale, April sale, May, June. You can also as well decide to group it, this group. So you can group it in quarters. Yeah, so you can see first quarter, second quarter, and you can group it in years too. If you group it in year, it will return just one result since all of them are within the same year. So let's group in year. So we see just one result, 2026. Looking at this, let's say we put sales amount here. So we have sales amount in rows, sales amount in column. So what this means, you see that 96,000 provides 96,000 and all of that. So the same thing here is what is here. So what I want to do here now is number grouping. So you can right click, just put your value here, then you your mouse here, then you right click and come to group. So you can start at, since the smallest is 96,000 and the highest is 135,000. So you can group it by, let's group it by 30,000. So what that means is, next thing you are going to see is 96,000 to 125,999. 126,000 to 155,999. 156,000 to 185,999. So that is grouping of numbers. So you can decide to change the grouping value as it suits you best. Now that you have your pivot table, you can format the pivot table well. We can just look at this and introduce border. You can introduce border here so that it looks well. You can come here and format it. Since this is the part of sales, you can format it to be a currency. Okay, let's say in dollars. So you format it to be in currency. So you format it to be in currency. You can as well change this name. Maybe you don't want it to be sum of sales. You should say the sum of sales by grouping. So whatever you deem fit to change it to, you can easily change it to that. And remember that when you add some records to your data set, you have to refresh. So let's say we insert a row here, and then for that row, we now insert a record for, let's say we insert a record for Toby, and Toby is in Lagos, and then he bought monitor, and then monitor is what? Is an electronics. So how many did he buy? Let's say he bought 5 monitors. So if he bought 5 monitors, that should be around 900,000 if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 900,000. Okay, so this is, let's say 900,000. Yes, 900,000. So by the time you come to your pivot table, for it to reflect, you have to do what? You refresh the table. 900,000 should be somewhere around here, right? So we see 9 million. So let's refresh. So once you refresh, it becomes 9,900,000. So the 900,000 has been added. You can decide to put region in my row, product in the column, and then okay, let me put region in the filter, and let's put date in row. So what this means is that let's group our date by month. Let's group our date by month. So we group our dates by month. So we see that in the month of January, we have the product mouse. The product mouse was sold in this is the sales for mouse, sales for keyboard, sales for this, and the grand total. But now this region is showing all, so I can filter the region to show only Lagos. I can filter the region to show only Lagos. So this is what happened in Lagos in the month of January. So I can also filter it to show me Lagos, and then let's say select multiple items. So Lagos and then Abuja. Lagos and then Abuja. So this is what happened between Lagos and Abuja as of then. So this as well, you can look at this place and just so this is what happened between Lagos and Abuja. So you can just play around your pivot tables, and the most important thing is that you give interpretation. Yes, as a data analyst, you don't just create a pivot table and leave it like that. You should be able to interpret what is on the pivot table. What exactly is on the pivot table should be interpreted. So with this now, let's assume I sort this. Okay, so you should be able to look at this and give your interpretation of the outcome.